The old man was not cruel. He was not devious. He was just there. He did not misshape me. He did not castigate me. But he was always there, always watching, his crow's eye taking in every detail, watching night and day, never remarking upon my habits, mostly silent, but always there. And so it was decided he would be removed, snuffed out. Don't plead with me about humanity or compassion. It was simple. What must be done must simply be done. You consider me mad, but a madman acts on impulse, whereas my plan was as finely sculpted as a watch. And it cannot be mad to do that which is right. That is necessity. For 6 nights, I entered his chamber, waiting after midnight at the door. I listened until the pace of his breathing eased, and then I opened the door. So slowly, with such precision, no mortal could see me nor hear me move. For over an hour, I stood in the darkness, silently, gently turning the handle, and then, subtle as a breath, moving inwards. The old man never had an inkling, never stirred. No madman was capable of such stealth, such guile. This is where he slept. I watched him every night until just before the dawn. The dead of night, quiet, no sound. Certainly not that sound, that dreadful, grating sound that shall forever remind me of him. The old man, himself a quiet, humble soul, but forever followed by that noxious noise. No, I will not describe it. No. Suffice to say, it put my nerves on edge, and my body twitches at the very thought of it. This is where it happened. On the 7th night, I sat here, watching him. Then, to my surprise, and I suspect his, the eye opened. His crow's eye. The one that was always recording me. Recording me as I wrote, as I ate, as I spoke, as I paused, as I collected myself. There was nothing else for it. Quickly, and with great gusto, I gathered up the bedclothes. With the strength that is born of great determination, I held him down. Forcefully, crushingly. Though he cried out a fearful screech, he was not a bad man. No, not at all. But, after some brief struggle, the life ebbed out of him so easily, one might think he was glad for the end. It was not so difficult as you might think to dispose of the corpse. You see, I was prepared. Dismembered into tiny pieces it was. Arduous work, to be sure, but not without some sense of satisfaction upon its completion. I had secured protective clothing for this express purpose. You can see not the slightest sign of my night's bloody labours remains. A sponge and shower cap protected me from the other odd pieces of grisly debris. Yet, I must report a certain anxiety. Not at my recent, somewhat ghoulish endeavours. No, not at all. For what is done, and there is no turning back. But I did dread the return of that loathsome sound, that shrill, insidious tone that would curdle my thoughts and buckle my spirit. The old man was gone, his crow's eye shut for all time. But to ensure no return of that malignant tone, I buried what remained as soon as possible. Though you would be hard-pressed to find any signs of disturbance, here is where I buried what remained of the old man. But the spotless condition of these surrounds, and my calm demeanour throughout, surely indicate that these are not the actions of some fevered madman. Instead, look upon me as a dedicated artisan. Yes, dedicated. Dedicated. I like that. Sometime later, there was a loud knock on the door. It was just after the dawn, and I was certainly not accustomed to receiving visitors at that hour. But my spirits were high, my temperament most even, and so I answered. There stood 2 police officers. They recounted being called by the neighbours upon hearing the sound of a cry and a scuffle. I greeted them warmly and said there had indeed been a cry earlier, as I had awoken from a particularly chilling nightmare. I told them the old man was away on business, but they were most welcome to come indoors and make themselves at ease with the situation. And so they did. I offered them coffee and took them around the house. Firstly, to the old man's Spartan but ordered quarters, then to my functional but admittedly somewhat drab living area. Then, of course, to here. By now, there was no hint whatsoever of suspicion in their manner. I had engaged them with lively discussion about their duties and the chill outside from which they must be pleased to escape. And we sat here. My mind drifted from the stresses and precisions of the hours before. Yet, just at that moment, I heard something. It was as if all my labours, plans and intrigues had been for naught. I thought, I felt faintly, yes, faintly, that accursed noise, distant and shrill, like some unspeakable beast dragging its claws across a blackboard. I did not let my tension show. My easygoing conversation continued uninterrupted, my guests still clearly enjoying the break from their nightly rigours. But beneath the facade, I twitched and I cursed. The horrid sound grew louder and louder still. It emanated from the very floor and walls around me. Still my guests continued their sickly pleasantries. "Do not mock me!" I cried. Their faces froze in a pallid attempt at ignorance. "Do not pretend you cannot hear it!" Still they did not move, and that pestilent sound grew louder and louder still. Oh, be done with it! Be done with it! Though tortured, as you can see, I remained lucid and determined there was no other course of action but to finish that sound once and for all, to trace it to its very source and to destroy it. And so I smashed, and I smashed, and I smashed, and smashed, and smashed, and I smashed, and smashed, and smashed, and smashed, and smashed, and I smashed,